I've been cruising since the late 90s, and I've been cruising with Royal Caribbean for about 20 years now, and I absolutely love going on a cruise. But there are some things that I absolutely hate about going on a cruise ship, and I gotta be real with all of you. Up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. I love cruising. I'll go on a cruise as often as I possibly can. I'll recommend it to just about everybody I run into. But there are definitely a few things that, well, I don't always love about it. There are always going to be negative things in life. Not everything is unicorns and rainbows. And that holds true with cruising as well. And today, I wanted to be realistic with all of you and share the things that do bother me, because sometimes I see comments from folks who are like, Matt, you love everything about Royal Caribbean. You love everything about cruising. And I do like a lot of things about Royal Caribbean, and I like a lot of things about cruising, but it's not all exactly perfect. Number one, the toilet paper. So this is something no one ever told me about when I first started cruising, but it's something I learned over time that I absolutely don't like, and that is the toilet paper on board your cruise ship. No matter which ship you're on, whether it is a Royal Caribbean ship or any ship in the fleet, the toilet paper is absolutely terrible. It's single ply, it's about as comfortable as newspaper, and it's just not great. Now, this is not a big deal because you're only on the ship for a couple of days. Although admittedly, if I was on the ship for a month or so, I'm not sure how I could handle that. Props to the people on the world cruise right now who are dealing with that, but I digress. The toilet paper is purposefully this poor quality, not because Royal Caribbean is being cheap and they're trying to save some money, but because maritime plumbing is required to be pretty standard. It's not the same as it is at home, and it has very strict limitations on what it can handle. As a result, it can really only handle things that come out of your body and really basic single-ply toilet paper. Now, it's not the end of the world to use it. I don't want anybody who's watching this video to think, oh goodness, we should cancel our cruise because of it. I certainly don't. But I get on board the ship, I'll use the facilities probably the first time and then realize, oh yeah, this is a thing on here. Anyway, if I could wave my magic wand and fix the maritime plumbing and the toilet paper at the same time, I would absolutely love that. But it is a reality of going on a cruise, and I absolutely do hate the toilet paper on board a Royal Caribbean ship. Keeping in mind, by the way, you can splurge for a suite that has a bidet or bring some cream with you that help with all that, but, it is what it is. Number two, group shore excursions. Man, I love going to ports. Actually, that's what got me hooked on cruising in the first place. Going to these amazing places around the world, getting a taste of what's there to offer, and then magically being whisked away somewhere else. I love that. But group shore excursions have really gotten to the point now where I really don't like them at all. The problem with it is simply the timing of it and the pace of them. And the reality is they go very slowly, they take a long time, and inevitably there's a lot of wasted time. If you've ever done a shore excursion before, you're gonna have to report somewhere to meet up for your tour. Usually it's in the theater, sometimes it's on the pier itself. Regardless, whatever time they give you, inevitably that time comes and goes, and you will see other people come in much later. Clearly, the cruise line recognizes people come in late. On top of that, even if everyone is on there on time, you're still moving at the vendor schedule, and in a lot of cases, there's just a lot of hurry up and wait. A lot of sitting and waiting for something to happen. And then when the tour does go on, well, now you're moving at the pace of the tour, right? Now, depending on which type of tour you're doing, because obviously group shore excursions is a very broad subject. But if you're doing a bus tour, if you're doing a sightseeing tour, if you're taking a tour that brings you to a certain place, and then you're on your own, you're still going to have a certain amount of time that's dictated by the group. And it's up to you to make sure you're back on time and respectful of other people's time. But of course, inevitably, someone is always wasteful of that time. And also, when you're in a group, that means that your entire group descends on a spot together. So you want to get that awesome photo, well, that's cool, but you've also got to wait for other people to get out of the way of that photo that are in your group. On the plus side, group shore excursions are indeed easy. I mean, they're fairly easy to manage, easy to book, and they're far less expensive than private excursions. However, every time we take a group shore excursion over the last couple of years, especially since cruising restarted, since 2021, I kind of come to the conclusion that I don't love group shore excursions. And instead, I will seek out to do things on our own as a family or private excursions if that makes financial sense. Number three on my list are rude passengers. Now, rude people in general, I think we can all agree, are not cool. And unfortunately, this happens on cruise ships as well, which is always surprising to me because you're on vacation, you're probably enjoying a great time away from work, away from your obligations. Like, what could you possibly be angry about? But, things happen, life happens, right? And this is true on cruise ships. Now, it's one thing for a passenger to be rude to another passenger. It's not acceptable by any means, but it happens, right? And the best you can do when it happens to me is I just simply ignore it, move away. It's just not worth my time or effort to engage with it. It's not worth the effort. However, passengers that are rude to crew members, my goodness, I get so irate about this. In a lot of cases, some people think that the rules don't apply to them, and they will talk back to crew members or ignore crew members and basically give them no respect, even though they, as guests, are literally guests on board the ship, meaning that they are there and they agree to follow Royal Caribbean's rules, and yet there are people who think the rules don't apply to them. No matter what your crown and anchor status is, no matter which cabin you're staying in, you are not more important than anyone else out there, and the rules of the ship still apply to you. And I just don't get why people have to have that kind of an attitude where they come into it thinking that they're better than everybody else, or they can circumvent the system and be smarter than everybody else. You're not. And you're setting a really bad example for everybody else, and more importantly, it's really bad form. So you're on a cruise, take it easy, be flexible, and if things don't go your way, que sera, make the best of it. Next on my list is the post-cruise survey. After every single Royal Caribbean cruise, within a couple of hours of disembarking the ship, you will get a survey from Royal Caribbean asking for your opinion on how everything went. That's a great idea, actually. I like that idea. The problem with the post-cruise survey is it has evolved into a pass-fail survey. What I mean by this is all the questions you'll be able to rate on a score of 1 to 10. And basically, in Royal Caribbean's world today, anything below a 10 or a perfect score is a fail, which is a real problem because Royal Caribbean adheres to the Net Promoter Score, NPS. In a lot of cases, Royal Caribbean will tout its Net Promoter Scores in different marketing materials. Sometimes you'll hear executives talk about this. The problem with Net Promoter Scores is that it's unrealistic and it punishes the wrong people. You can see this if you ever go on a cruise these days and start talking to different crew members, like your dining room staff or your stateroom attendant, in which they give you this talk, usually towards the end of the cruise, in which they really urge you not only to take the survey, which is fine, but to give them a perfect score or they're going to get in trouble. And by the way, they do get in trouble if they don't get a perfect score, which is absolutely bananas. Number one, nobody's perfect. Whether you are the CEO of the company or you empty the trash, everybody could use improvement in what they do, including myself, by the way. So the result is customers are being told and pressured in order to provide perfect scores or feel bad about the fact that the crew member that they've come to know and enjoy on their ship is going to suffer the consequences. When the corruption of a Net Promoter Score measurement involves pressuring customers to provide only the highest score, customers who are not inclined to recommend the service will resent the pressure. Furthermore, the company is not going to receive early warning signals of customers' dissatisfaction. Think about it. When there's a thing that you enjoy, right? Maybe the internet, and it works great every day of the cruise except for one day because of something, it doesn't deserve a perfect score. That doesn't mean the service is bad. It means that there was a problem on one day. Similar to how you could go to a restaurant and eat there a couple different times. Maybe one particular person had an issue, or there was an issue going on in the kitchen. They don't deserve a perfect score, but they also don't deserve it to be failed either. This is the problem with Net Promoter Scores and the post-cruise survey. I want Royal Caribbean to completely gut this and go in a completely different direction. They should absolutely be asking for guest feedback and acknowledge ways that Royal Caribbean can improve and still get also recognition for crew members who go above and beyond. But the Net Promoter Scores isn't the way to go. Something else I hate about cruising is the Passenger Vessel Services Act, the PVSA. In fact, you might not have heard of this thing. Sometimes people call it the Jones Act. But the PVSA is legislation from 1886 that requires foreign flag cruise ships to call on a foreign port if sailing on a closed-loop cruise from the U.S. The idea behind this is actually to protect U.S. shipping. It has really nothing to do so much with cruise ships directly, but cruise ships, because they're foreign flagged, get looped into this program. The problem with the PVSA, and the reason why I hate it, is that it basically neuters a lot of the itineraries that you can do from North America. When your cruise ship sails from a U.S. port like Miami or Cape Liberty or Los Angeles, it's required to make at least one foreign stop along the way, meaning it needs to leave the U.S. and go to another country. Now, in some cases, this is very easy. In the Caribbean, you can easily find a ton of countries within a short distance. Nassau, Bahamas is a great example of this. But on the West Coast, or in Alaska, which is also on the West Coast, I get that, there are very few options. You're either going to Mexico or you're going to Canada. The problem is, what if you want to go to other places and it's not so simple to get to those foreign ports? As an example, what if you want to do a cruise that visits just Hawaii? Or maybe you want to do a cruise up the United States East Coast and visit some amazing historic cities? What if you want to take a one-way cruise that begins in one port and goes somewhere else? Like your cruise begins in Miami and then ends in Boston, right? These are all ideas that are completely impossible or near impossible to do with the PVSA because the ship would have to stop at a foreign port along the way at least once. Now, in the case, again, of the Caribbean, you can do that, but if your cruise begins in Miami and wants to go north, Well, you got a problem because you got to find some place to go, and inevitably, you're going out of your way. And the logistics of a cruise, especially in North America, where 7 nights is pretty much the norm for a normal long sailing. Like most Americans are unwilling to take cruises longer than 7 nights. Apologies to those of you that are retired, but most other people can't take that kind of time off. So as a result, we get these itineraries that are pretty much the same old, same places. And of course, while there are other factors that contribute to this, including fuel and ports that actually handle ships of that size, the PVSA is doing no favors to the cruise industry, and I really wish the legislation would be updated to a more modern take on it to really exclude cruise ships or give cruise ships different rules than cargo ships. We're up to number 6 on the list, and that is getting sunburned because it still happens to me. I still can't believe it. Every time I go on a cruise, we always go to these amazing places, and putting on sunscreen has become part of our routine. I get that, and I do have, I think, a pretty good job of it. But occasionally, things happen. You forget to reapply, which is usually the problem for me, and I get sunburned. And getting sunburned absolutely, positively stinks. I mean, even a minor sunburn is going to be, of course, bothersome. And more likely, its effects will last much longer than just like the rest of the day. In a lot of cases, you feel overheated, you have pain, it's not enjoyable. It's obviously preventable. It's actually very easily preventable, but it does happen, and it's something I definitely don't like about going on a cruise. Similarly on my list is getting seasick, and I still can't believe that after like 80 cruises that I've taken, I can still get seasick on a ship, but it does happen, even to the best of us. Getting seasick is not a guarantee. Going on a cruise ship is also very different than going on a ferry or your buddy's boat over on the lake. The stability of a cruise ship is truly impressive, and 9 out of 10 times, I never have a problem. But probably once or twice a year, I'll go on a cruise and inevitably get seasick on there. And just like sunburns, they are preventable. You can take certain medications and different homeopathic treatments for it. There's a variety of things that are out there. So the good news is if I get sunburn or seasick, I know what to do about it, but I absolutely hate these issues of going on a cruise. And the last thing I hate about going on a cruise is the fact that gratuities are still listed as quote-unquote optional or an add-on price. Essentially, when you book a cruise, you have the cruise fare and you have taxes and fees. Those are built in. You got no choice about them. They'll break them down for you, but that's the cost, right? And we all get that. Cool. But on top of that, you're also going to have your gratuities that go towards the crew members on board. Now, for some reason, actually I know exactly what the reason is, Royal Caribbean still lists the gratuities as being like an add-on. Like you can either add them on now, like being prepaid, or you can pay them once on board the ship. But there is still actually the option to go to guest services and ask them to be taken away if you'd like. And the problem with all this is that the gratuities are compulsory. Let's face it, you're going to pay the gratuities for it. You should be paying them. If you remove them because you're being cheap as a way to save money, you are punishing the wrong people. Crew members work extremely hard on your ship, and those gratuities that we're talking about go towards your stateroom attendant and, of course, your dining room staff. Now, if you wish to tip them in cash, which some people do, that's totally cool. That's fine. But you still need to tip them something along the way. The problem is some people remove them, and the cruise line kind of acts as if it's not part of the total cruise cost, which I think is, quite frankly, a little bit misleading. So I would love for gratuities to be part of the cruise fare in the same way that port fees are part of the cruise fare. Just like if you go to Nassau, like on your ship, and you don't actually get off the ship, you still pay the port fee. That's part of the fees you paid as part of your cruise fare, and gratuities should be treated absolutely no differently. Make it part of the cruise fare, no additional things to consider, make it simple, and most importantly, protect the crew members out there. And by the way, for the record, they already do this in Australia because gratuities are not really customary within the Australian culture, and so Royal Caribbean already roped in the gratuities as part of the cruise fare there. So if they can do it there, they can do it anywhere, and I think that's definitely the way to go. So there you have it, a list of the things that I hate about taking a cruise. Yeah, I mean, these are things I absolutely hate. Doesn't stop me from going, by the way, because every single one of these things can be mitigated or at least dealt with on a small scale. And in my opinion, there's opportunities for Royal Caribbean to either improve these things or for us as cruisers to do better about it. Let me know in the comments below. As someone who loves to cruise, what is something you absolutely hate? Something that drives you up a wall? Let me know in the comments below. While you're down below our video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.